Before we begin, I thought it would be fun if everyone lets me know in the comments where they're watching this video from. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's start today's episode. The Jundurgi is an Australian Bigfoot-like creature, standing 2 to 3 feet tall, with black fur, large white fangs, and red eyes. They live in groups, dwelling in caves or natural rock hollows. While generally considered harmless, they can be dangerous. Jundurgis primarily eat shellfish and honey and are believed to communicate using a chirping language. Stories of Jundurgis are found in the old tales of Aboriginal people. A more recent sighting occurred in the 18th century. 10 to 14-year-old students said they saw 8 Jundurgis on their school. They took a few steps towards the children, then retreated into a hole into the ground and disappeared. Another sighting also occurred in 1979, where some children were attached near a mine shaft by 3-foot-tall black hairy creatures. A car window had even been smashed by one of them. There is an Aboriginal tribe in the Northern Territory which have a camp near the Jundurgi dwelling. They believe these humanoid nocturnal creatures protect them from other evil spirits that mean them harm, such as the bush curlews, which if not for the Jundurgi, would steal their babies. The tribe moved in the Jundurgi's dwelling after losing a lot of babies and have not lost one since. For this reason, the location is kept secret and protected. Jundurgi translates to devil in Aboriginal language, where repeating words is used to emphasize size or intensity. The footage in question is claimed to show one of these creatures, adding to the mystery of the Jundurgi and their folklore. If you're fascinated by Unsolved Mysteries and enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up to stay updated on all our latest content. Moving on to the next mystery. The girl recalls that during a family vacation to New York, she had a strange experience at her uncle's house in the Hamptons. At the time, she was around 10 or 11 years old, and the family had just arrived for their first night. After a day of shopping, her mother cooked a meal for her uncle, who was not in a relationship at the time, so a home-cooked meal was a rare treat for him. After having eaten this incredible meal and being fully satisfied, I went upstairs to take a nap in the room I was staying in. This is in my Uncle Joe's office. I laid down on the couch and remember seeing my brother playing a game. He had his headphones on and was talking to one of his friends. As the food was hitting me, I curled up on the couch and closed my eyes, dozing off to the sound of his voice. After this, I was jolted away by my mother yelling and shaking me. She's screaming at the top of her lungs, tears in her eyes asking where have I been. I have no idea what she's talking about. My whole family then proceeds to come upstairs and question where I've been for the past 30 minutes, and that they've searched every inch of the house, and even went out in the street looking for me. I told them the truth that I was taking a nap, and my mom didn't believe a word that I said. She was furious and called me a liar. She told me I couldn't come downstairs unless I told the truth. This was incredibly hard because I wanted to convince them that I really had not played a trick on them. I had been upstairs the whole time and fell asleep next to my brother, but I knew it wouldn't work. I knew in this state of mind they would never believe me. I had just gone missing for 30 minutes and was nowhere to be found. I had really scared my parents, and my mom was incredibly emotional and sensitive. My uncle told me that he thought his crazy neighbor next door had kidnapped me. Long story short, I had to confess and tell them that it was all a prank. We moved past it quickly and started to enjoy the rest of the vacation. I haven't brought it up in a while, but since then I've tried to tell them it wasn't a prank and that I really didn't know what happened, but they don't believe me. I know I won't ever get a solid explanation for this, but I just want to know if anyone else has a theory of what it could have been. I haven't had any past experiences with sleepwalking. This house is a little old and creaky too, so it will be hard to move around without getting caught. If I did play hide and seek or something like that, they would have found me as they searched every part of the house. It seems like the girl is grappling with an experience that defies logical explanation, leading her to consider the possibility of something paranormal. While it's difficult to say for sure what happened without more details, there are many accounts of strange experiences that people interpret as paranormal, often leaving them with lingering questions. It's understandable that she would seek similar stories or insights from others who might have encountered something unexplained. Many people have shared similar experiences involving strange feelings, unexplained events, or encounters that they can't fully explain, often leading to the conclusion that something beyond the ordinary occurred. What's your take on it? Have you had any similar experiences or thoughts on the matter? Moving on to the next mystery. Hidden in the background of the Mona Lisa, a previously unnoticed image has been revealed with the help of advanced microscopic technology and high-resolution imaging. Researchers from Italy's National Committee for Cultural Heritage uncovered a finely detailed unknown bridge and archway in the painting. This discovery has led many to speculate about the bridge's significance to the artist and its possible symbolic role in the composition of the painting. Additionally, two of the mysterious numbers found in the painting are written on the underway of the arch beneath the bridge, that is the number 72. Using this number as a hint as to what the bridge could have represented, researchers discovered that there had been a bridge located in a small Italian village that was destroyed back in 14/72. This bridge was known as the Ponte Gobbo, and it was constructed in the town of Babeo, a small town located more than a few miles south of Piacenza in northern Italy. Unfortunately, this bridge was recorded as having been destroyed back in the year 14/72 as the river Trebbia overflowed and burst its banks, causing the bridge to collapse. Researchers believe that this number and bridge helped to record the events for Leonardo da Vinci, of whom could have visited the location and bridge throughout many different years of his life. Moving on to the next mystery. Levitation, in the paranormal context, refers to the rising of a human body into the air through mystical means. Some religious groups suggest it may be the result of supernatural forces or psychic abilities, while the scientific community dismisses it, attributing such events to trickery or illusions. In this clip, a German film crew captures an African shaman allegedly performing levitation, claiming no wires or external aids were used during the act. Moving on to the next mystery. This CCTV footage, taken in the historic Hopkinson shop in Nottingham, shows a mysterious figure moving along a rail of clothing. The shop, originally opened in 1880 as H. Hopkinson Limited, was a family-run business selling to factories and textile mills. The current owners believe the shadowy figure could be the ghost of Mrs. Hopkinson. Moving on to the next mystery. The heat ray, a legendary weapon supposedly invented by the ancient Greek mathematician Archimedes, is said to have been used to defend Syracuse from the Roman fleet in 212 BC. According to the legend, Archimedes used mirrors or lenses to focus sunlight onto Roman ships, setting them on fire. Although no archaeological evidence has confirmed the heat ray's existence, historical accounts mention its use in defense of the city. One account, written by the Roman historian Lucian, describes how Archimedes used a device which he had prepared against the whole Roman fleet to set fire to the ships. Another account, written by the Roman general Marcellinus, describes how the Roman fleet was caught on fire at a distance by the concentrated burning rays and sank. While the heat ray is often dismissed as a myth or legend, some scientists and historians have attempted to recreate the weapon to see if it could have actually worked. One experiment, conducted by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 2005, used mirrors to focus sunlight onto a small wooden boat, which caught fire in just a few minutes. On the hit television show known as Mythbusters, the hosts of the show, known as Adam and Jamie, began the episode with a request on recreating the mythical heat ray that had been used by Archimedes to fight back an entire military during his day. According to the legend, Archimedes was at the shores of a massive siege between his own people and a number of Roman warships during the siege of Syracuse. Made entirely aware that his people were both outnumbered and outmatched, Archimedes began constructing what was referred to as a burning glass that would be able to burn the Roman warships and protect his people. A number of the legends and different variations exist that claim he used one large mirror to reflect the direct sunlight, whereas others claim he used the shields of 70 soldiers to redirect the light at the warships to catch them on fire. This legend has often been challenged by a number of researchers from around the world, claiming that such a story is completely fabricated and that the physics of the encounter don't seem to add up. This led to the Mythbusters attempting to recreate the event only to find that they were completely unable to ignite a model ship at all with the use of reflective shields. But note that this experiment has been successfully recreated by other researchers. Some also note that throughout history, There's been various accounts of strange devices that have been used throughout battle, with even the ancient Greeks going on to note that they once had a device that could light up enemies. Overall, the heat ray remains a fascinating and mysterious piece of ancient history, and its true existence and capabilities continue to be debated and studied by scholars and scientists today. The Viking Sunstone. The Viking Sunstone, also known as the sun compass or solar compass, is an ancient navigational tool used by the Vikings during their long voyages across the seas. The sunstone is believed to have been used by Viking navigators to determine the position of the sun even on cloudy days when the sun was not visible. The sunstone is a type of crystal, most likely a type of calcite or cordierite, which has the unique ability to polarize light. When light passes through the crystal, it is split into two rays, each of which vibrates in a different plane. By rotating the crystal until the two rays are equal in intensity, the navigator could determine the direction of the sun even when it was obscured by clouds or fog. Historical records suggest that the Vikings used the sunstone in combination with a shadow stick compass, which relied on the position of the sun to determine direction. The shadow stick compass consisted of a stick placed in the ground with markings indicating the position of the sun at various times of the day. By measuring the length of the shadow cast by the stick, the navigator could determine the position of the sun and thus determine the direction of travel. While the exact use of the sunstone by the Vikings is still a subject of debate among archaeologists, recent studies have suggested that the sunstone was a highly accurate and effective navigational tool. In a 2011 study, researchers from Hungary successfully navigated a boat using a sunstone and shadow stick compass, confirming the accuracy of the Viking method. The use of the Viking sunstone is just one example of the ingenuity and resourcefulness of ancient navigators who were able to navigate the seas using only the tools and resources available to them at the time. The Viking sunstone stands as a testament to the enduring legacy of Viking explorers and their contributions to modern navigation. Moving on to the next mystery. Scientists believe a small race of Homo sapiens, known as hobbits, were wiped out by modern humans. Excavations in a limestone cave on the Indonesian island of Flores uncovered a 3-foot-tall skeleton with a skull 1/3 the size of a typical human's. Researchers found the bones of 9 such individuals, with the youngest dating back 12,000 years. They also found tools and other signs of civilization. The new study dated layers of volcanic ash and calcite directly above and below the fossils. The bones range in age from around 100,000 to 60,000 years old. Stone tools in the cave used by the hobbits are from 190,000 to 50,000 years old. On September 6, 2003, Indonesian archaeologist Wayu Satsamo was overseeing the excavation of Sector 7. This was at Lingboa. Benjamin Torres, one of the locally hired workers, was excavating the 2 by 2 meter square when all of a sudden, the top of a skull began to reveal itself. 6 meters beneath the surface of the cave, Satsamo immediately joined Benjamin, and the two of them slowly and carefully removed some of the sediment from around the top of the skull. Satsamo then inspected the excavation portion of the skull. The skull was said to have definitely belonged to a hominin and most likely the death of a small child. This was due to the size of its brain case. After several days, enough of the cranium and mandible had been exposed for them to realize this was no small child. Instead, all of its teeth were permanent, meaning this was a fully grown adult. The most comprehensive study of the bones of Homo florensis, a species of tiny human discovered on the Indonesian island of Flores in 2003, has found they most likely evolved from an ancestor in Africa and not from Homo erectus, as is being widely believed. The study by the Australian National University found Homo floresiensis, dubbed the hobbits due to their small stature, were most likely a sister species of Homo habilis. One of the earliest known species of human found in Africa 1,750,000 years ago. Data from the study concluded there was no evidence for the popular theory that hobbits evolved from the much larger Homo erectus. The only other early hominid known to have lived in the region were fossils discovered on the Indonesian mainland of Java. Study leader Dr. Debbie Agu of the ANU School of Archaeology and Anthropology said the results should help put to rest a debate that has been hotly contested ever since the hobbits were discovered. The analyses show that on the family tree, Homo florensis was likely a sister species of Homo habilis. Professor Mike Lee of Flinders University and the South Australian Museum stated that they can be 99% certain that the species is not related to Homo erectus, and nearly 100% sure it's not a malformed Homo sapiens. This suggests that these individuals shared a common ancestor distinct from both Homo erectus and modern humans. Moving on to the next mystery. The Mothman is a mysterious creature from the state of West Virginia. Over the past few decades, there have been numerous reported sightings of the Mothman, often described as a large, winged humanoid with glowing red eyes. The first recorded Mothman sighting took place on November 12, 1966. This was near West Virginia. 5 men were looking out at some trees and noticed something strange. Lifting off from the trees was a brown-winged creature. The men held to the fact that what lifted off beyond the trees was no bird, it was a humanoid. These images were recently captured by a man. I can't seem to find where the images originated from, but I was sent a testimony. It said the following: "This creature suddenly flew out from the trees. It surprised everyone that was around, and many people started running away. It was like nothing I'd seen before. It looked like a man that had huge wings. I have never seen any animal that matched this creature. The creature flew from the trees and into the clouds. After it went into the clouds, I couldn't track it anymore. After the encounter, I went home and did some research. I discovered that the only thing that matched my encounter was the Mothman. I think that I witnessed this creature. This was the Mothman. The photos look interesting, but what do you guys think it is? Let me know your thoughts in the comments." Over the last few decades, there have been many encounters with the Mothman. On November 15, 1966, 2 couples would encounter this bizarre creature. They were driving through the TNT area around midnight when one of them noticed 2 large glowing red eyes in the darkness. This was besides the Old North power plant. They soon learned that those eyes belonged to something that looked human. The creature was around 7 feet tall and had wings. After stopping the car, the couples inspected the creature. The 4 realized immediately their spectacle was no ordinary bird. Incredibly, this creature chased them down Highway 62 to the Point Pleasant city limits at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. A mysterious creature resembling the Mothman was also sighted in the UK. In 1976 in Morn, Cornwall, there was a sighting of a large creature known as Owlman. The first sighting took place on April 17, 1976, when the creature was spotted hovering above the Morning Church Tower. Strange, these sightings up to August 1978 all occurred within the vicinity of this church. This cryptid, which unsurprisingly has the appearance of an owl, is about the size of a man. It has pointed ears, red eyes, and black pins like claws. Another encounter happened in 2007. The eyewitness said the following: "As I was driving home from a friend's house, I witnessed something that changed my life. The only way I can describe it is it looked like a giant owl. While driving home, I saw this giant creature fly in front of my car. At first, it shocked me because I had no idea what I was seeing. As I slowed my car, I saw it flying off in the distance. It was massive, unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I think I might have witnessed the Owlman." Moving on to the next mystery. A massive exoplanet with a mass 13.4 times that of Jupiter has been discovered 22,000 light-years away in the Sagittarius constellation. This colossal planet, known as OGLE 2016 BLG 1190 LB, is so enormous that scientists are debating whether it should even be classified as a planet. Its mother constellation, Sagittarius, lies in our galaxy's bulge. In the words of the astronomers' report, since the existence of the brown dwarf desert is the signature of different formation mechanisms for stars and planets, the extremely close proximity of OGLE 2016 BLG 1190 LB to this desert raises the question of whether it is truly a planet by formation mechanism. In June of 2016, the Optical Gravitational Lensing Experiment Project and the Spitzer Space Telescope confirmed the existence of this exoplanet. Using the new technique of microlensing, this is the first ever exoplanet to have been found using this novel lensing technique. Microlensing allows us to detect planets in outer space better than we could before, and is the next step in our cosmic journey and technology. It uses stars as a background flashlight to illuminate new stars and planets. This way, if a star overshadows another star, the line of gravity is affected and amplifies the further star. Another brilliant thing about microlensing is that it is not dependent on light from host stars, meaning that should a host star be undetected, planets can still be found. The OGLE project started at the University of Warsaw, Poland. The Polish astronomical collaboration is meant to explore the nature of dark matter and to help research extrasolar celestial bodies. The University of Warsaw uses its Warsaw Telescope, which resides in Chile's Las Campanas Observatory. South Korea's Astronomy and Space Science Institute based in Daejeon began an international study into the Polish OGLE project's research led by Yoon Hyun-ryu. As such, this is truly the work of multiple countries based on their excitement and desire to uncover the mysteries of our world. OGLE 2016 BLG 1190 LB orbits a G-type dwarf star, but due to its immense mass, it has scientists pondering whether it is even a planet. Instead, it could be a low-mass brown dwarf star itself. Yet, it's at the mass threshold for a low-effort star's burning limit, otherwise known as the line between what we know to be a planet versus what we know to be a star. We know that it does orbit as a normal planet would, and its orbit lasts roughly 3 Earth years. The brown dwarf desert theory explores the presence of brown dwarfs in solar systems, particularly how many can exist in a system without being companion objects. This discovery has prompted scientists to reconsider the boundary between what qualifies as a failed star and what defines a planet. Moving on to the next mystery. Nikola Tesla earned the nickname Wizard of Wardenclyffe after starting construction on his Wardenclyffe Tower, which was designed to be one of the largest Tesla coils ever built. The title, coined by reporters, resonated with the public due to the association with wizards and fairy tales living in tall, isolated towers. Tesla embraced the moniker, seeing it as fitting for his innovative and mysterious work. Additionally, this title would go on to have the inventor remembered not just as an incredibly brilliant inventor, but also that of a mystic. It was around this time that Nikola Tesla began to understand the properties of wireless electricity and so began conducting a number of experiments centered around the creation of the tower. This soon led to him using up so much electricity that he would cause the complete meltdown of generators and the electrical grid throughout the nearby town of Colorado Springs, and eventually led to a number of strange reports claiming that loud thunder strikes could be heard coming from the tower even without the existence of clouds nearby of any kind, leading many at the time to believe that Tesla was capable of an otherworldly kind of magic. Around this time, Nikola Tesla made several eerily accurate predictions, including the sinking of the Titanic, the end of World War I, and a train derailment. These uncanny foresights further solidified his title as the Wizard of Wardenclyffe, enhancing his reputation as a visionary inventor with an almost mystical understanding of the future. Moving on to the next mystery. A mysterious cosmic phenomenon has been observed, with bursts of intense energy repeatedly exploding from deep space. These bursts, known as fast radio bursts, FRBs, were first detected in 2007, and scientists remain puzzled by their origin. FRBs release powerful pulses of radio waves, and despite extensive research, the cause of these strange explosions is still unknown. These blasts are short, lasting a mere few thousandths of a single second, but their strength and power is so great it overpowers the amount of energy our sun releases in an entire year. It is common for FRBs to release a radio wave explosion only one time in their lifetime. But the object now known as FRB 121102 and some others release these bursts of energy multiple times at random moments. FRB 121102 was found to be located 3 billion light-years away from Earth in a dwarf galaxy. Using the Chinese FAST or 500-meter aperture spherical radio telescope, astronomers were able to experiment and explore possibilities with FRB 121102. FAST is the most advanced radio telescope on the planet. It is able to detect the smallest changes in outer space that normal telescopes used by space organizations such as NASA might not manage to see. In a span of only 60 hours, FRB 121102 blasted energy a shocking 1652 times. That is up to 117 times in a single hour. Never before has an FRB created pulses at such insane speeds. FRBs tend to occur away from Earth, meaning we rarely get a chance to adequately study them. Exceptionally, in 2020, an FRB was discovered in our Milky Way. It turns out that the source of this particular FRB close to us is a magnetar. Magnetars are deceased stars produced from neutron stars. This is the first time we have ever discovered a source of an FRB, and it is uncertain whether all magnetars are the origins of FRBs or just this one. Still, where the FRB comes from is now not known. The leading theory suggests it comes from magnetic reactions on the magnetar's surface. Its magnetic field rivals that of Earth by trillions, and therefore the FRB blasts might come as a result of such volatile magnetic fields. The FRB blasts from the Milky Way's magnetar are much less intense and frequent compared to the FRB 121102. However, research into FRBs is still in its early stages, and there remains much that scientists do not yet understand about these cosmic phenomena. As scientist Victoria Caspi pointed out, the next step lies with theorists to unravel the mysteries behind these puzzling bursts. Moving on to the next mystery. Highgate Cemetery, located in London, UK, is a place that naturally evokes a sense of unease for many. The very mention of a cemetery can send shivers down one's spine, especially when considering the many stories linked to it. Highgate, established in the 1830s, is the final resting place of 170,000 individuals, making it both a historical and eerie landmark. Its dark, Gothic atmosphere, seen in photos and experienced in person, has earned it a reputation as one of the most unsettling sights in London. Amongst them are the singer George Michael, political philosopher Karl Marx, South African anti-apartheid campaigner Yusuf Dadoo, and scientist Michael Faraday. The cemetery, situated in North London, covers some 37 acres. Its spectacular Gothic architecture made it a fashionable place to be buried in Victorian England. Coincidentally, the same era that ghost stories and Gothic fiction began to rise in creativity and subsequently popularity. Works such as Bram Stoker's Dracula, Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Raven, Robert Louis Stevenson's Jekyll and Hyde, and Henry James's The Turn of the Screw were all published between 1837 and 1901, owing to the reinterpretation of horror in Victorian times. It wasn't until the 1970s, however, that the most famous haunting story arose out of Highgate. In the late 1960s, Highgate Cemetery fell victim to vandalism. In fact, the tomb of Karl Marx had survived 2 attempted explosive strikes. In 1968, a group of young occult enthusiasts began visiting the cemetery, following various reports of paranormal activity in the cemetery. This activity included sightings of the deceased rising from sealed graves, phantoms drifting around the cemetery, and even an attack on a teenager, leaving physical scars. In the same year the group visited, what was described as a desecration of one grave was discovered. It was not known whether the occult group had anything to do with this, but the scene discovered was horrendous nonetheless. According to reports in the London Evening News, an unknown person arranged flowers taken from graves in circular patterns with arrows of blooms pointing to a new grave, which was uncovered. A coffin was opened, and the body inside was disturbed. But their most gruesome act was driving an iron stake in the form of a cross through the lid and into the chest of the corpse. In the years following the bizarre finding, bodies of deceased animals with slashed throats began to appear in the cemetery. And when a local newspaper published the story of a man named David Farrant in February 1970, the Highgate vampire myth was further fueled. David Farrant had reported seeing a gray figure wandering amongst the tombstones that he believed to be supernatural. Soon after, David Farrant entered into a bitter ghost hunting dispute with self-proclaimed exorcist Sean Manchester. Sean Manchester dubbed the entity the Phantom of Empire, and he, along with his partner, began their pursuit of the mysterious creature. David Farrant was later arrested, and the saga came to a dramatic end in 1973 when Manchester reportedly drove a stake through the heart of the beast at the so-called House of Dracula in Crouch End, London. Despite this, the legend endures, continuing to captivate the imaginations of those intrigued by the supernatural. Moving on to the next mystery. Born in 1958 in the quiet town of Stillwater, Minnesota, Pamela Cainez grew up on a dairy farm in a close-knit family. As the second youngest of 8 siblings, she enjoyed the warmth of familial love and the simple pleasures of rural life. However, as she matured, she felt an increasing urge to break free from her familiar surroundings. At 25, driven by a desire to explore and serve her country, she made the life-changing decision to join the U.S. Navy, embarking on a new chapter at the Orlando Naval Training Center in May 1984 after moving from the heart of Minnesota to Central Florida. Her upbringing on the family farm had instilled a strong work ethic and a disciplined nature, both of which proved invaluable during the rigorous Navy training. After 2 intensive months of preparation, Pamela proudly graduated from the training facility on August 3, 1984. Sadly, her triumph was short-lived. Just 1 day later, her promising future took a tragic turn. The last record of her whereabouts was at the Fashion Square Mall in Orlando, where she had been purchasing toiletries and makeup from a Kmart. Investigators subsequently found a transaction with a timestamp of 3:18 p.m., which provided vital information about her last known activity. Later that evening, between 6:30 and 7 p.m., Pamela was seen strolling close to the Naval Training Complex with an unidentified male. It was recorded that they were present at the Navy base pub, Club Mariner. The mystery surrounding the unnamed individual continued to elude detectives, further complicating the tragic events. On August 5, 1984, Pamela Cainez's body was found half-naked and unresponsive in front of an abandoned house on Riverview Avenue in Sanford. Her death was terrible, indicating that her life had been snatched and then mercilessly abandoned somewhere else. The case took an extremely terrifying turn when a generic receipt without identifying information was discovered at the crime scene. This enigmatic transaction from 1:09 a.m. was found to be a purchase from a Chinese restaurant. Her family was rocked by Pamela Cainez's sudden death and struggled for 34 long years with grief and unresolved issues. The initial investigation was complex, and the authorities could not identify a culprit or determine the purpose of the horrible act. Due to its proximity to the Naval Training Center, authorities surmised that the offender may have been affiliated with the military base. The Seminole County Sheriff's Department worked hard. Still, they could not track down any vital leads, and the case went unsolved for many years. The years did not lessen Pamela's family's resolve to pursue justice for their cherished sister. They encountered dead ends and depressing moments in their search for answers, but they never gave up hope. Finally, there was a breakthrough in the development of forensic technology. In an unexpected turn of events, Pamela's family was contacted by a Seminole County Sheriff's Department detective who set up a face-to-face encounter in Minnesota. The family assembled, not knowing the historic discovery that awaited them, expecting regular updates on the case. The detective played a video of Thomas Lewis Garner, one of the suspects, being taken into custody by the family. A first-degree homicide allegation was brought against the 59-year-old dental hygienist who had worked with Pamela Cainez at the Orlando Naval Training Center. Garner had been living in Jacksonville for several years when the arrest occurred. For Pamela Cainez's family, the arrest signaled the start of a new chapter. Still, it also raised a lot of unanswered questions. The reason for the crime was never revealed, and it was never made apparent how Garner and Pamela were connected to the naval training environment. After appearing in court, Garner was confronted with the seriousness of the accusations made against him and the possibility of serving out the rest of his life in prison. The creative application of genealogical databases and DNA analysis led to the case's breakthrough. By building a DNA family tree with the help of the open-access genealogy database GEDmatch, investigators were able to identify Thomas Lewis Garner. Detectives were able to match Garner's DNA with evidence that had been preserved from the 1984 crime scene thanks to further surveillance of him and the discovery of a personal item. After decades of uncertainty, the Cainez family finally felt hopeful again after Thomas Garner's arrest in 2019. This marked a turning point in the cold case. Thomas Garner testified on his behalf during the trial. He acknowledged that he might have had a brief sexual contact with Pamela a few years before. Still, He flatly denied having anything to do with her horrific death. Garner's defense team presented an alternate story to disassociate himself from the crime and cast doubt on the prosecution's case. In the much-anticipated resolution of the unsolved case, a jury found Thomas Garner guilty. After being found guilty, Garner was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole, which put an end to a drawn-out court case that lasted almost 40 years. Immediately following the announcement of the verdict, Pamela Kahane's sister, speaking on behalf of the family, gave a powerful speech in public. She conveyed a range of feelings, highlighting her wish that Garner would consider the time he had to himself while her family was grieving. Although the sentence brings some closure, it will never be able to undo the years of agony completely the family went through due to the lack of justice. Detectives have recently revealed that Thomas Garner is under investigation as a potential suspect in another unsolved crime. Reports indicate that his DNA matched evidence found at the scene of a 1982 Honolulu murder involving a 25-year-old woman. Even though he has not been charged in that case, prosecutors have hinted that he could be linked to additional victims. This speculation that Garner might be a repeat offender has prompted further inquiries into his connection with other unresolved crimes. The arrest and conviction of Thomas Lewis Garner in the gruesome case of Pamela Kahane stands as a testament to both the perseverance of investigators and the advancements in forensic science. Pamela's story begins with a young woman eager for adventure and dedicated to serving her nation. However, her life takes a tragic turn that leaves an enduring impact on her family. This distressing case serves as a powerful reminder that even the most challenging cold cases can eventually be solved through the unwavering commitment of investigators and the progress made in forensic technology. In the end, the legacy of Pamela Kahane may come to embody resilience and determination in the face of adversity. Moving on to the next mystery. In 1986, Chaim Weiss was only 15 years old. A bright and curious teenager, he had been enrolled at the Torah High School in Long Beach, New York for the previous 2.5 years. This private institution, designed exclusively for Jewish boys, emphasized the moral and theological teachings of Orthodox Judaism. Known for his amiable nature and having no known enemies, his murder on Halloween 1986 was all the more shocking. When Chaim Weiss was found dead in his dormitory early on November 1st, investigator Don Daly was called to the scene at the school. The 15-year-old had been struck on the back of the head by an unidentified weapon while he slept. However, subsequent reports noted that the small cuts on his scalp suggested that a tool similar to a hatchet might have been used. Evidence from the room indicated that after being executed in his sleep, his body was moved to another spot on the floor. Despite the cold weather, Chaim had left his window open. Given that Chaim's body had been relocated to its lowest and coolest place and the window had been opened to let his spirit leave, these two facts have frequently given rise to the belief that whomever killed him was familiar with the customs of his religion. Neither signs of a struggle nor evidence of robbery could be found in Chaim's room. It is believed that since the small child resided on the 3rd level, it would have been impossible for the burglar to enter or exit through the window without a ladder, which other pupils would have probably noticed. Another student at the school pointed out that in order to reach Chaim's dorm, the culprit would have needed to make their way past other students and professors through a number of common areas and halls. This has led many internet detectives to conclude that the young boy's murder had to have been committed by a person who was familiar with the structure and could remain undetected. Before Chaim's chamber was shut up after his death, a memorial candle was placed there. 2 days later, there was another candle there. But strangely, no one claimed to have put it there when questioned. This odd detail is included in most papers about the little boy's case, even though it's assumed to have been executed by a careless and inattentive rabbi. Because of the ongoing Jewish Sabbath, Detective Don Daly was unable to speak with any of the school's instructors or pupils right away. When he did, however, the people at the school were a little reluctant to answer. This was assumed to be the result of religious prohibitions that prevented them from coming forward without verifiable proof or the testimony of another eyewitness. There was little that could be done about it, which must have been unbearably irritating for the local police enforcement looking into the issue. Even though there was not much advancement in this area, Don was able to reconstruct Chaim's final hours. The 15-year-old and his friends left class on Halloween night to go to services. After that, he went back to his dorm. Chaim was one of two boys who was not required to share a room, which is noteworthy. Chaim was an exception to the rule, as the majority of students shared with one or two other persons. It's unclear exactly what qualifies a student for this benefit. On October 31st, a few hours after the small child had gone back to his room, his friends noticed him reading in the hallway. This was typical, as during the Sabbath, students did not keep their lights on in their rooms. It was around 1 in the morning that Chaim was last seen alive. No students brought up any unusual or questionable activities. At one point throughout the night, one of the boys did notice that Chaim's dorm room was opening and closing frequently, but he assumed that this was only because his roommates weren't aware that Chaim resided there alone. Polygraph exams were given to about 40 students and rabbis in total, although this did not further the research. Polygraph tests are notoriously unreliable and seldom add value to an inquiry, as we have frequently stated. A jogger who saw the student on the boardwalk at around 7 a.m. on November 1st observed that the little child didn't appear right. This witness has never been identified, and it's unclear if he has any connection to the case at all. There was a relatively tiny list of suspects in Chaim's case. Police struggled to obtain answers and had very little evidence to work with to further their investigation because there was so little to go on. One suspect was a mentally ill guy who had attacked multiple elderly people in their houses close to the school that year, and the other was a former school janitor with whom Chaim was rumored to have had an incident. But both of these people were quickly ruled out. More than 100 former classmates were interviewed when the 15-year-old's case was revisited in 2013. Then, in 2015, authorities declared that they thought a faculty or student had committed the crime. Earlier speculation suggested that Chaim had been the victim of a hate crime, but since he had been so specifically targeted, this theory was quickly discarded. When a news station interviewed Chaim's father, Anton, in November 2017, he talked about a number of strange things that happened in the months before Chaim passed away. Just a few months before he passed away, in July 1986, Chaim called his father from summer camp and wanted to return home. Although Anton was away on vacation in Florida at the time and unable to come pick up Chaim, he stated that his son was weeping and appeared to be in great distress. He said that the 15-year-old seemed well and that everything seemed to be good when he stopped by the camp on his way home. Thus, he didn't give it any more thought. Then, in August, while Chaim was traveling to Europe to visit his grandparents, Rabbi Avraham Cooper, Anton's principal, called him more than once to inquire as to when his son would return. The rabbi invited Anton to bring his son by his house another time so they could have a private conversation. Chaim went back to his father after the 10-minute conversation, but he wouldn't tell him what had been discussed. These facts lead Anton Weiss to surmise that Rabbi Cooper knows something about Chaim's murder that he has not revealed. Given that it appears clear that the 15-year-old was not just the target of the murder, but also that someone inside the school caused his death, many internet sleuths assume he was involved in the crime. When the Weiss family filed a lawsuit against Torah High School for neglecting to protect Chaim, this line of reasoning gained more traction. This legal issue started after it was found that the dorm building's rear door lock was broken and had never been fixed, and that no dorm counselor had been assigned for that particular night. Rabbi Cooper is said to have urged Anton to reflect on any misdeeds he might have committed as a means of understanding the misfortunes that had befallen his family during that period. In recent years, a former student has come forward alleging that the school's rabbi habitually beat him severely. He asserted that Rabbi Cooper was aware of this abuse, yet failed to intervene. This mistreatment reportedly occurred about a decade before Chaim's murder, and the 14-year-old student attended the school for barely a year before eventually dropping out. A few years before Chaim's death, another student reportedly committed suicide by hanging himself in the showers, with indications that he suffered from severe depression. It remains uncertain whether the abuse allegations were properly investigated or if this student's circumstances were connected to them. Despite extensive efforts by local law enforcement, the brutal murder of Chaim continues to be unsolved. Moving on to the next mystery. Changeling is a 2008 mystery crime drama directed by Clint Eastwood that stars Angelina Jolie as Christine Collins, a mother whose child vanishes in the spring of 1928. When the child is returned several months later, Christine quickly realizes that the boy is not her son, prompting her lifelong quest to uncover the truth. The film is a compelling and moving narrative based on the true story of a real woman with the same name, born on December 14, 1888. Not much is known about her early years, but as a young adult, she married Walter J. Collins. At the time, Christine was unaware that Walter had a criminal past. He was a convicted robber who had already served his sentence and was living under the alias Walter Joseph Anson. After their marriage, he was forced to serve additional time in prison. Their only child, a son named Walter, was born to Christine in September 1918. On March 10, 1928, Christine, who was living in Los Angeles, California, as a single mother after her husband's imprisonment, gave her 9-year-old son some cash so he could go to the movies. But that night, Walter never came home. Fearing for her only child's safety, Christine reported her son's unusual disappearance to the police right away. And as a result, the case attracted national attention. Detectives investigated 100 leads during the course of the inquiry, many of which turned out to be scams. Reports of seeing Walter flooded in from all over the nation. A Glendale petrol station employee said he saw the young child in the back of a car, his neck down shrouded in newspapers. While neighbors said police they saw Walter in a car with 2 foreign-looking people pleading to be let go, witnesses claimed to have seen him in Oakland and San Francisco. Some residents reported that they had been contacted by a couple who appeared to be Italian and asked about for Walter's address. But as the months went by, neither the 9-year-old's whereabouts nor those of his loved ones were able to ascertain. The LAPD started to feel pressured by its superiors to wrap up the case as they carried the burden of the missing youngster on their shoulders. The only idea put up by the media, despite their critical reporting regarding the lack of progress in the disappearance, was that Walter had been abducted as payback for something his father had done. Even so, they were never able to identify any suspects or go farther with this theory. However, 5 months after Walter disappeared, the police surprisingly called Christine with some positive news. Her young son had been located. Christine was shocked and ecstatic to hear from the police that Walter had been transported to DeKalb, Illinois, where he had miraculously escaped and turned himself in. Before Christine paid to have Walter transported home to Los Angeles, she and her son exchanged a number of letters and pictures. But Christine sensed that something wasn't quite right when they got back together. Despite having a similar appearance, the youngster was not Walter and lacked knowledge of many aspects of his life that she would have expected her son to know, like his father's name. Captain J. The child's appearance, according to J. Jones, the investigation's chief investigator, was just a result of time and the trauma he had experienced after being abducted. According to cops who evaluated the young person, in addition to having a horribly malnourished body and a drawn face, the Los Angeles Times claimed that the child also had mental health issues. The outcomes seemed to indicate the terrifying ordeals he had endured at the hands of his abductor. Christine did not waver in her conviction that this young boy was not hers. Captain Jones took the youngster home with her after persuading the 40-year-old mother of one to give him a try. Christine complied since she was tired of the officer's pressure. However, 3 weeks later, she was still the same. Christine approached the LAPD over her son, armed with dental documents that demonstrated the 2 boys were not the same in the opinion of a handwriting expert who had examined and contrasted the boy's handwriting with Walter's. Feeling compelled to close the case while being embarrassed by the claims, Jones became enraged and accused Christine of being a bad mother who was merely out to make fun of the police. After that, Jones had the distressed mother placed under a Code 12 internment, which is a procedure used to imprison or commit someone who is seen to be problematic or inconvenient, to a mental health unit at LA County Hospital. Jones continued to question the young child while Christine was being committed. Eventually, the boy confesses that he was not Walter Collins. He was Iowa-born 12-year-old Arthur Hutchins Jr., a juvenile offender and runaway. Because his stepmother didn't want or love him, Arthur and her had a tough connection. He was supposed to regularly check in with the police after being arrested for theft, which happened not long before he pretended to be the 9-year-old who went missing. He'd been asked if he was Walter Collins after being apprehended by the police in Illinois. He originally answered no, but changed his mind and said yes, stating that he wanted to leave his family behind and start over in Hollywood. Christine was discharged from the mental health facility after 10 days. Understandably, she was saddened that she still didn't know the location or fate of her lost kid, and she was incensed over the way she had been handled. She filed a lawsuit against the LAPD, taking them to task. She filed the lawsuit, won it, and deliberately targeted Jones. Despite being awarded the equivalent of $150,000 in today's currency, Jones never gave her the money she was entitled to. Jones was also temporarily removed from the police service for a few months before being returned on a permanent basis. Police in Wineville, California, were looking into a tip from a young woman in Canada who said her uncle, who owned a chicken farm, was abusing her brother. In 1929, after an inquiry, the tipster's uncle, Gordon Stewart Northcote, was found guilty of kidnapping, abusing, and murdering 3 young boys in a case known as the Wineville Chicken Coops murders. The tipster's brother and Northcote's nephew was Sanford Clark. Additionally, he had experienced physical and sexual abuse while residing with his uncle. He had shown the authorities the location of the improvised graves, which were beneath the farm's chicken coop. Quicklime had been used to fill the shallow graves, and many body parts and the remains of a bloody mattress had been buried with them. Police learned from Clark's evidence that Northcote had assisted his mother, Sarah Louise, in killing the boys and disposing of their remains. Clark had volunteered as well, but only because he had received threats of violence if he disobeyed. He went on to say that he was afraid of his uncle. Sarah Northcote acknowledged, under interrogation, that she had taken part in the murder of 9-year-old Walter Collins in late 1928. She was given a life sentence without the possibility of a trial for killing Walter as a result of her confession. Although the state decided not to pursue her son for Walter's death, they did try him for the 3 other murders. While no sign of Walter's clothing or body was discovered at the farm, forensic evidence was found for these victims. The number of sets of remains found in the graves is unknown. Authorities also think that Walter was a victim of Northcote and his mother, although neither his clothes nor his remains seem to have been discovered with the others. Gordon Northcote was convicted of all 3 murders on February 13, 1929, and given the death penalty. He refuted any involvement in Walter's disappearance, and his mother then attempted to take back her admission. She allegedly provided the authorities with numerous other erratic and disjointed remarks. Gordon was pretty much the same. He first admitted to killing 5 boys, but later changed his story to claim he had only killed 1. Later, he told a prison officer that he had killed up to 20 youngsters. Despite Sanford Clark's confirmation of Sarah Northcote's account of her involvement in Walter's murder, Christine Collins made the decision to think that her confession was a fake. Gordon was waiting to be executed when Christine wrote to him, and she eventually got permission to speak with him just before he was executed. Northcote abruptly changed his mind and told the mother of one, "I don't want to see you," after having pledged to explain to Walter what had truly transpired. "I have no knowledge about it. I'm not guilty." October 2, 1930, saw the execution of Gordon Northcote. 5 years later, a child and his parents reported that a boy had disappeared in 1928. The police received this report from the family and initially assumed that the boy was one of the other victims associated with the Northcotes. Neither Sanford Clark nor the Northcotes had ever informed the authorities about a boy's escape. Upon learning this, Christine Collins felt a renewed sense of hope, convinced that her son had also managed to escape before he was killed. Her husband, Walter's father, died in 1932. For the remainder of her life, Christine persistently searched for her missing child. She made several attempts to collect the money owed to her by Captain Jones, even taking him to court twice in 1941, but she was never compensated. Christine passed away at the age of 75 in 1964 and was buried in Los Angeles. To this day, the whereabouts of Walter Collins remain unknown. Moving on to the next mystery. Esteban Carranza, nicknamed the Ice Killer or Ice Cream Killer, was born in Mexico on September 6, 1978, and holds dual citizenship in Spain and Mexico. A bright honor student, she ventured to Spain in her youth and later moved to Germany, where she impressively mastered the language in just 3 months. Eventually, she settled in Austria and launched her own ice cream business. After a brief courtship, a 22-year-old Esteban married 38-year-old Holger Holtz in Vienna. Despite her fervent dreams of marriage and starting a family, her fairy tale did not turn out as she had hoped. Her relationship with her husband deteriorated rapidly. Not long after their wedding, Holger became distant and started verbally abusing her, repeatedly calling her unattractive until intimacy between them ceased. Moreover, he became involved with the Hare Krishna movement, spending more time at the temple than at home. Disillusioned with her marriage and yearning for a child, Estebalas eventually began a relationship with 48-year-old Manfred Hinterberger, a dealer in ice cream machinery. Her husband and her divorced, but he wouldn't leave. Therefore, Estebalas's ex had a front-row ticket to watch as their relationship began to fall apart. Manfred reportedly left Estebalas for another woman in 2008, and her ex-husband reportedly took pleasure in this and told her she would never find another man. Estebalas approached Holger from behind as he was seated at his computer desk and used his own firearm to kill him. She gave him 2 shots, then one more to be safe. Estebalas then attempted to set the body on fire, but it managed to stay mainly intact, according to her own memoirs, which were released in 2014. When the fire got too hot, the neighborhood fire department showed up at her home, but she was able to shoo them away without getting caught. The 30-year-old, fearing that she would be discovered and her hopes of becoming a mother destroyed, took out a chainsaw and began dismembering her ex-husband's body. His bones were hidden in empty ice cream pails she took from her business, filled them with concrete, and kept them hidden in the shop's cellar. Estebalas continued living her life as if nothing had occurred, oblivious to Holgerhol's absence and persistent in her search for a guy who would treat her well and have the children she desired. Manfred Hinterberger reappeared on the scene shortly after this. This time he arrived prepared, declaring that he was ready to settle down and raise a family, and pleading with Estebalas to take him back. The young lady therefore consented to resume their romance, but she soon discovered that she was having trouble trusting her new companion. Estebalas was inspired to take photography courses and explore concrete mixing in 2010 after discovering nude images and lewd texts from a lady on Manfred's phone. The couple got into a violent fight one night over Manfred's lack of faithfulness, but instead of working things out, Manfred just turned away from her in bed and dozed off. Estebalas killed her partner with a gun because she was so angry and probably desperate. Unlike her former husband, she was ready this time, having plastic sheets ready for when it came time to dispose of the body. The 32-year-old woman told inquisitive neighbors that she was just playing with a new ice cream machine in the parlor when they questioned what she was up to. Life in Estebalas's ice cream parlor resumed as usual until 2011, when workers performing maintenance in the cellar discovered an unpleasant stench permeating the space. Estebalas was unable to completely mask the smell of rotting flesh, even though she had tried her hardest to hide it with a ton of air fresheners. When a basement worker opened a bucket in the freezer, he discovered the decomposing remnants of a limb inside, which horrified and disturbed him. Estebalas did not lose time. When Estebalas was detained, she took a taxi to Italy and was found hiding in the flat of a street singer who had maybe just avoided being shot. Estebalas discovered she was pregnant, the one thing she had always desired, on the day of her imprisonment. Newspaper stories simply identify the father as Roland. The details of their relationship are unclear. Rudolf Mayer, the same attorney who defended the notorious Joseph Fritzl, represented Estebalas throughout her trial. A doctor diagnosed her with a personality disorder and deemed her extremely dangerous, capable of committing murder again, while prosecutors described her as remarkably cold-blooded. Experts expressed doubts about whether therapy could be effective. Nonetheless, in 2017, Estebalas was transferred from her original prison to a specialized facility in Aston near Linz City, Austria. This modern, mixed-gender institution allows inmates to move freely and even cook together. Reports indicate that she was relocated because she exhibited a significant reduction in the threat she posed. However, it remains unclear how the 40-year-old managed to transition from being at high risk of relapse to qualifying for a transfer to a less restrictive setting. During her incarceration, Estebalas studied business and authored a book recounting events between 2008 and 2011, which was published in 2014. Some accounts suggest that she will receive all the proceeds from her book to support her son, Roland, who was born while she was in prison. According to a BBC report, she married his father during her incarceration, and there are conflicting reports regarding whether her son now lives in Spain with his father or his grandparents. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing unsolved mysteries with me. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Unsolved Mystique for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any mysteries you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video.